Start there. Start with the bodybuilding. Start with why you wanted to get into bodybuilding, and then answer the question on why you wanted to document the journey.
So the reason why I wanted to get into, because I mean, just long story short, I've been working out for, I think I did the math. So probably around like 7, 8 years of weightlifting now. Yeah. And so I've been doing it for a while. And I bodybuilded for about 5 years, 5 to 6 years, and I've been powerlifting for the past 2 years. And so I recently watched the Olympia. Ryan Terry's video after he won men's physique really just inspired me to want to compete at that level. And I think the whole reason for, well, one, because I got injured powerlifting 5 days in a row, as any powerlifter should do. You should always powerlift 5 days in a row.
Yep.
Smart, right? But I think what really kind of triggered this catapult was for me is just that love of just competing. And I think seeing what is actually possible. And I think what also was a big influence was, because I love to think about it in this aspect of, if I feel like if I'm posting this content, and not to flex, not to, I mean, well, yeah, I'm going to be flexing, right? But like, not to show how significant I am, not to show, like, look at this aspect of me, trying to appear a certain way, which I'm sure there's going to be inklings of course, right? But I think it's going to be more so of an aspect of how this kind of experience can influence other people to help them live their lives the way they want to. In terms of pursuing what they actually want to do. Because I know from our experience and people around us, a lot of people, whether they say they're paying attention to what we're doing or we're having an impact, right, they may never actually say that to us. And so with this, I want this to kind of be a real world documentation in the moment experience of how I'm actually feeling, what the process is like, and how I transform not only my because it's going to be it's going to be the hardest thing I've ever done. And it's going to be a crazy mental and physical test that I'm not intellectually ready for, because I haven't even gotten a taste of what that's like. Yes, I've cut in the past, but not to that degree. Yeah. Not to 4 to 6% body fat. Yeah. And then stepping on stage and you're performing you're putting your body through an extremely rigorous process day in and day out. Yeah. And that includes calories, that includes training, that includes you name it, mentally as well as, like, you know, spiritually on a very deep level. And so, long story short, I think this kind of process would really just display those kind of aspects to people, and then also, in addition, not only make me better, right, but help influence other people too at the same time. And essentially, that's really not only was it like, I think this is going to be such a cool challenge, and thinking about my future self stepping on stage in the best condition I've ever been in is just, not only is like, wow, I want to do that, but it's also like, wow, look at the impact I'm going to have too.
So if you can narrow that down to like one sentence.
Don't let your future self down. That's what I've been saying at the gym every single day. And I cannot tell you how much of an influence that has on me when I'm working out, me when I'm thinking about myself on stage. Because when I'm doing those reps, when I'm in the struggle, or I don't, like, because honestly, I never feel like I'm pushing hard enough, right? And it's never hitting that kind of satisfactory rep goal, right? And so it's like, yeah, that's also kind of, you know, work smarter, not harder. But when I think about me not being as good as I could be on that stage, and I'm like, I have to fill that gap. I have to essentially prepare as hard as I can to ensure that I did everything that I can, that I've done everything within my ability to bring the best package that I can, right? So I can't let that person down. I just can't. And in my mind, that to me is the single-handedly the biggest thing when it comes to everything. When it comes to relationships, when it comes to your personal life, when it comes to what you want to pursue, you just can't let your future self down, because what you do now will affect you in the future. You plant those seeds now and they grow into trees that may or may not grow to the size that they could have grown to if you didn't give it the necessary resources and opportunities for it to grow to that size. Right. And so whether that be me today when I go work out and I hit legs and I'm halfway through the workout, I'm just like, oh, I'm not doing this. Like, what? Like, no, that's not an option. Like, you have to do this no matter how hard it gets.
Yeah.
And to me, when I say that phrase in my mind, it just not only does it help energize me, but it puts me on such a deep internal path of wanting to get to that other end, wanting to get better, wanting to be the best version of myself possible.
Right. And
it sucks. It's hard, but it's so worth it in the end because when you look back, you know you did everything you could.
Of course. Do you think that comes from like a position of where you, like, there's been times in the past where you look back and you didn't give it your all? Do you think that that's where it comes from, or do you think it just comes from the fear of being inadequate?
I think it comes from the fear of being inadequate. But I think it's also because I think one of my biggest motivators is never wanting, like, I never want to show up for something not prepared. Like, to me, that is single-handedly the worst feeling ever. Like, I hate that feeling. Yeah. And so I think long story short, it's the avoidance of that feeling. Yeah. Right. So if I don't show up to competition day prepared, I'm gonna get that same feeling of like, oh, dude, I could have done more. Right. Woulda, shoulda, coulda. Yeah. Regret. Yeah. And I think to me, it's just it's doing what I can now, and if I just close that gap, that's what's gonna be the motivating factor to not feel that, I guess you could say, feeling.
Yeah, you don't want to look back and be like, I could have done one rep differently.
Yeah, could have done one rep differently. And of course, like, I can always go harder. Of course, you can always do better. But it's like, in that moment in time, I want to match my workout with my perception. And if I'm able to do that as much as I can, not in a kind of like compromise way, but like where I'm like, oh shit, like I really pushed myself and like I made it through it, even though it was hard and it sucked, that would be satisfactory to me. Yeah.